Travels of the Ellis Arbor is an audio narrative set in the world of Bastion using 5e compatible characters. A dark fantasy world with chaos, intrigue, magic, and mystery. The story, setting, and sounds are written by Lonomy and published by lonomy.creative. Tune in for episode 8. Salt. Treading carefully round the decaying staircase and scattered remains of the cellar, both Darian and his companions made their way into the belly of this forlorn sanctuary. Rancid and xanthous slime coated the walls, reflecting a gloomy light within the interior. His crude torch held aloft. The captain led the descent. The silken goo and stagnant flow of the cellar seemed almost comely, beckoning the captain forth to explore its hidden depths. Carpathian chose to, instead, wait at the top of the stairs, his hunched form likely too cumbersome to explore the depths. Accompanying him was the shorter-statured Moor and the youngest of the crew, Ed. Neither seemed content to wade through the lapping pools, likely coming up above their waists. Ed, in particular, saw no great benefit to the exploration, seeing as his mechanical accoutrement would likely be damaged in the process. And so, it was their artificer, Nout, and the daring captain, Darian, who ventured within the miry depths. Taking a handful of stones from his pouch, Nout placed them in a circular impression of his floating disc, activating the enchantment. There it hovered, a precarious few inches above the surface of the water, allowing him to remain dry despite the Icarus interior. Handing the torch to Nout, Darian bid the artificer venture first, using his levitation to their advantage. Slowly, with a bristling hum of magic, Nout combed through the depths of the cellar, watching for any sign of movement, of danger, and of curios. Little was left here that had not been eroded by the steady march of time or the trickling, grinding aptitude of water. Boxes and crates rotted beyond worth. Foodstuff and glass bottles covered in a thin layer of moss and algae. The remnants of a few sundries and furniture were all that adorned this single flawed cavern. Though what it lacked in hallways and coves, it made up for by its surprising expanse. Navigating the perimeter, Nout gathered it had been nearly 100 feet across. Square in construction and designed as a sizable storehouse, there must only be one explanation for its flooding. By his calculations, the southernmost wall must cross the threshold of the ocean. A singular gap or crevice in the stone walls would provide all that was needed to flood the interior. Though, given the age and long bereft of maintenance, surely it should have all been consumed by even the trickle of ocean water. For all his guile, and with the light of the torch as his companion, neither the southern, nor any wall for that matter, seemed to allude to a breach, or some way for ocean water to fill the interior. Indeed, to his knowledge, the cellar was sealed tight. This made both he and the captain wonder. How then does 100-foot square cellar become so filled with ocean water? And indeed, the water of this cellar was of the ocean. The unmistakable smell of salt, briny and brash, evoking memories of fishing hamlets, bustling quays of anglers and sailors alike, though accompanied by that intense broil of decay. Nearly an hour they searched, carefully combing through the stagnant pools and whispering to each other of their findings. Nothing. At least, nothing that had yet to be revealed. A moment passed, where, in his absent-mindedness, Nout leaned a little ways off his perch, clawing at what appeared to be a mural or a scratching on the southernmost wall. From what he could ascertain, a faint glyph or enchantment had been etched into the soft coating of the dew-stained wall. As he did, his pocket bulged as a handful of enchanted stones crept forth, clattering on the underside of his floating disc, plopping one by one beneath the surface of the pools. The trickling waves of each stone created a faint outline of patterns throughout the chamber. And merely feet from his position, they outlined a change in direction, a blockage of sorts. Something was there, something just below the surface, watching him. And as fast as the stones had fallen, the waves moved of their own volition, creating the rushing sound of water being pulled as a creature trudged through its depths. And in a flash of violent panic, a pallid, silky hand outstretched from the surface of the water, yellowed, sharpened claws at the end of 4 decaying fingertips. Next, the arms and a shoulder revealing a disheveled corpse, bloated and vile. And in that sharp instance, an aqueous form lunged out of the water, attempting to carve a swathe from Nout's flesh. And as the claw arced downward, his floating disc responded, pulling him away from the wall and toward the exit. The hand raked upon his left shoulder, and pangs of sharp pain searing down his spine and tearing through his leathered garb. Reaching forward, Darian drew his pistol aloft, aiming for the flaying claw, and with a whip of his silver pistol, a bullet tore through the air. Cleaving 2 fingers and part of the hand, the bullet ricocheted through the stone, splintering the far wall. And an unearthly cry, both of pain and panic, and the undead creature wailed against the assault, springing forward with its other hand, trying to claw now at Nout's floating disc. And at the sound of battle, more waves began to crash throughout the cellar as 2 more of its bloated brethren came forth. 3 more shots in his pistol, Darian aimed at the newest of his targets, the first sailing through the air and sinking into nearby debris. Cursing under his breath, he aimed for the closer of the 2 new targets. This time, with a heavy, wet thud, the bullet tore through the air, boring a bloody hole through the upper portion of its skull. As quickly as it came, that creature, eyes dull and white, sunk back into the depths of the cellar. Still, 2 of these creatures came sallying forth, their claws grasping at the air and water around them, clawing toward the escaping artificer. His floating disc carried him through the cellar as fast as it could, but the gnashing of undead teeth and their claws like daggers, reaching out to grab him and pull him under. It was then that Edward, steeled to the sounds of battle, crept downstairs enough to simply scry the scene before him. His weapon drawn aloft, the diamond at its heart began to whir and crackle as the arcane core was activated. In the seconds that followed, Nout tried desperately to make for the exit, pulling his small form along as the quickly floating disc would allow. At his heels, the 2 ghoulish figures had all but descended upon him. And in that final moment, the distinctive sound of crackling ozone and the explosive power of Ed pulling the trigger. A bolt of lightning, pure and bright, sailed past Nout's form, crashing into the nearest ghoul. Immediately, the shockwave burned down its decayed body, arcing downward toward the sickly pool of water. In a bristling, brilliant light show, the lightning then danced from creature to object and back again, diffusing a powerful electrical surge throughout the entire floor. Cries of anguish and pain as the two electrified ghouls clawed at their bodies before succumbing to the continual arc of electricity. Crashing into the stairs, Nout tumbled out of his floating apparatus, caught by the waiting arms of Darian. The lightning continued to arc until it slowly dispersed around the room, leaving only the smell of burning flesh and hot steam rising from the drying pools of slime. At the threshold of the cellar, Darian, Edward, and Nout gathered themselves, breathing heavily in the wake of the sudden, shocking assault. Surveying the scene, those ghouls that had somehow sought to draw Nout under the depths indeed shared a strikingly similar visage to that of the girl that had crept throughout the kitchen upstairs. Though before they could ponder long about this connection, the bile-covered, faintly glowing sigil at the southern edge of the room began to burr as its outline shone in a vibrant yellow light. The waves began to recede, and the crew began to glimpse at the mysteries that lurked beneath the stagnant pools of the chapel cellar. Travels of the Ellis Arbor is made possible by the generous support of our subscribers, followers, and most notably, our patrons. Thanks to Rob Jenkin, Nathan Ebley, and Ensign Turtle for supporting us so far on this journey. Please subscribe, give a like or a comment, follow us on Twitter, and stay tuned for the next episode. Don't forget, take care of each other.